The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power Season 2, Episode 4 introduced the Stoors, a new breed of hobbits akin to harfoots. Thus far, The Rings of Power Season 2 has been balancing four major storylines. As Galadriel and Elrond reckon with the elven rings of power and Sauron manipulates Celebrimbor as Anatar, Arendar and Isildur face off against wild men in the wake of Mordor's creation. The fourth storyline involves the Rings of Power's mysterious stranger and his Harfoot companions, Nori and Poppy. Nori, Poppy, and the stranger's storyline surrounds the trio traveling to the distant lands of Run in the Rings of Power. Run is situated in the east, a desolate landscape ruled by a dark wizard who may be in league with Sauron. Not only could this wizard hold the key to the stranger figuring out his identity, but also how to control his powers. In The Rings of Power Season 2, Episode 4, the stranger encounters Tom Bombadil to further his journey, while Nori and Poppy encounter another breed of hobbits from the Lord of the Rings universe, the Stoors. The Stoors are another of the three hobbit races in Middle-earth. The Stoors are similar to the Harfoots as predecessors of hobbits. In The Rings of Power Season 2, Episode 4, Nori and Poppy come across another Harfoot. However, this character, named Merrimack, is not aware of what a Harfoot is, instead dubbing himself a Stoor. The duo is then taken to a village full of Stoors, who have a similar way of life to that of the Harfoots, only one that accommodates the more harsh environment of Run. In The Lord of the Rings, the Stoors are another breed of hobbit that will eventually come to settle in the Shire. In total, there are three breeds of hobbit in Tolkien's universe: Harfoots, Stoors, and Fallowhides. The Harfoots were primarily outlined in the Rings of Power Season 1 thanks to Nori and Poppy's upbringing, with their journey in Season 2 now pitting them among the Stoors. Whether the Fallowhides will appear in the Rings of Power Season 3 story remains to be seen, but it seems the show is following a pattern of introducing a new breed of hobbit with each installment. The Stoors came before the Harfoots. The Rings of Power explains the Stoors' timeline. Nori and Gundabale looking up at the Stoor mural in the Rings of Power, 2024. In the Rings of Power canon, it is explained that the Stoors came before the Harfoots. One of the ways Nori and Poppy convince the Stoors that they can be trusted is by mentioning the name Burrows, the surname belonging to Season 1 Sadok. The Stoors explain that they know of the name Burrows, as Sadok's ancestor was once a Stoor. Gundabale states that Sadok's ancestor lived among the Stoors in Run before traveling west to find a fabled land of endless hills and greenery. This led to the wandering of the Burrows' ancestor, who eventually passed on his wandering ways to Sadok, the leader of the Harfoots. Based on this history established in the Rings of Power Season 2, Episode 4, it can be assumed that the Stoors came before the Harfoots, or at least Nori's clan from Season 1. The timeline paints itself as Sadok's ancestor leaving the Stoors and traveling west, eventually coming across more halflings and establishing the Harfoot group that Nori was raised among generations later. How the Stoors are different from Harfoots. The distinct breeds of hobbit have different appearances and ways of life. Nori and Gundabale talking by firelight in Rings of Power, 2024. In The Lord of the Rings, Tolkien describes the Stoors as having some physical differences from the Harfoots. Among the breeds of hobbits, the Stoors are described as being much sturdier than their brethren. Stoors are much heavier and broader in build, and they also possess larger hands and feet than Harfoots. Of the three breeds of hobbit, the Stoors most resemble men, exemplified by their ability to grow facial hair, which Harfoots did not possess during the Second Age or beyond.